There's time. All right, full chair, Kyle. Grab a spot. All right, we're calling to order the May 25th meeting of the Glaser Specific Plan Committee. And, all right, first item on the agenda tonight is just public comment. If anybody from the public has comments they'd like to make on anything that is not on the agenda tonight, or the floor is open now. Anybody?
No one on Zoom.
Okay. All right, and it seems no one in the room. We'll do a little housekeeping first, and then we will get into the meat of this, which is going through all of the documents and the charge items and discussing potentially transmitting this to the planning commission. So first off, meeting minutes for May 4th, 2023. Did everybody on the commission have a chance to review them? Were there any comments, questions, concerns? All right, I'll entertain a motion then to approve the minutes from the May 4th meeting.
I'm happy to make a motion to approve the minutes for May 4th, 5/4.
One second.
Second.
All right, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, that's unanimous for the notes.
5-0.
5-0. All right, May 11th, we'll do the same thing. I wasn't on May 11th, so I'll leave it to you four. So there's a quorum there. So any comments, questions, concerns? Everyone had a chance to review it?
Yeah, I made a couple comments.
We pull up the
I mean,
document.
nothing,
sign
it
it.
was just more of an editorial thing, so it's no impact.
All right. Are they track changes within?
Don't they automatically do that, Simon, if you do it?
Yeah, they were. Oh, yeah, there they
Yes,
are.
some typos.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay,
it was
so
just a
they're
couple typos, that's all.
All right, so nothing substantive.
No.
Okay. See them here.
Yeah.
Again, questions, concerns? It accurately reflects the record. When we take a vote, or sorry, when we have a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to.
Anybody second?
Yeah, I'll second.
Okay, I'll take a vote. I'll abstain, I wasn't there. Okay. Lori, did you vote?
I wasn't there. So.
Okay, so we got 3 yeses and an abstention. I don't know what to do there.
So as a point of record, you can vote even if you weren't there, but you did review the minutes, to the
Okay.
best of my understanding.
That's,
Yeah,
it's always been my
I believe that's
understanding too.
correct.
Okay, I can do that then.
Put me on as an aye. and we'll call
I
that
guess
vote.
it's
You don't have to.
another win, 5-0.
Are you, did you vote yes as well? Lisa? You did, okay, so it's 5-0. Thank you.
Okay. All right, so that's the housekeeping items out of the way. So as I mentioned, the goal tonight is to review a number of new documents that have come in, the final site plan here and the draft of the transmittal memo and attachments, and see if this commission is comfortable, proceeding this plan forward to the planning commission as is, or whether we want to send the applicant back to do any additional work, or there's always the alternative to sort of put an end to this proceedings. I don't think we're there. So what I think we should do is just go through the agenda as posted online, sort of document by document. And I'll open it up to you guys. I've spent the last few hours reading through these documents and just making sure I'm comfortable on everything. I hope you guys have had similar attention. So what I'll ask is, if anybody has questions, do we want to review the document live? And that way we can decide sort of document by document, because there's no way we're going to be able to review every page of every document live tonight. So why don't we start with, does anyone need a refresher on the charge? Or is everybody comfortable, they understand all the items in it?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so it sounds like we're good on the charge. I see there's an updated site plan that sounds like it's just technical corrections. Ken, is that something you would like to share, or?
It's essentially what you said, Alex. It's There was an error. So the plan is what you've seen most recently. There's no real change. You did take out the parking lot up near Mountain View Road, right? Take it out or not?
Still on there.
No.
Still in there. So there was an error in the unit count. So it was really 109 total units, not 106. It didn't, it was just literally counting the buildings, counting the number of dwelling units, and there was an error there. We caught that, we fixed that. And did you put in the revised table that we talked about too?
Yep, so if you go to the bottom, there's all sorts of area information that staff was looking for that's referenced in the master memo. It gets into the forested section of the town dedicated land, the pasture section of the town dedicated land, the wetlands in between the two development areas, the development area on the southern side, the northern side, and the area in between. It's all plus or minus, no decimals. It's meant to be loose at a sketch plan level. Changes expected in between sketch, which we feel this plan is to discretionary, but it all totals up to 97 acres of all of Mr. Glaser's property.
Right, those are some things that Emily had asked us just to put calculations on, and we didn't have numbers on those in previous iterations, but the plan is still the same plan you've been looking at most recently.
Yeah.
Ken, did you mention, just when you started, the parking lot in or out?
It's in.
It's in.
Yeah,
Okay, fine, all right.
Yep, check that.
Yeah, no, I could see it. I just wasn't sure whether he was referencing whether it was coming out.
Yeah, no.
No, it's in, okay.
And then in the top right, we added some specific plan criteria that the staff requested. So there's the growth management scoring piece and just kind of the highlights of it. That's more detail in the master memo that Emily and Ken did. There's language about the rec path to allow farming operations in consideration for the DRB, where that lies in regards to Mountain View. And then the last bullet is in regard to the parking area and how that gets dealt with moving forward, mostly determined by the DRB and select board. So just notes, and the triplex that was missed is on the southern loop. So we're still below 40 units on the cul-de-sac. With the changing of the road alignments and some of the other changes, we just made an accounting error. So we didn't add a unit. It's just that we weren't calling out everything that was on the plan.
Okay, so same drawing, just corrected numbers.
Correct.
All right, let's pull up the deliverable tracking table that I think Emily and Ken have been working together on. Because that tracks effectively everything that needed to be done to meet the challenge of the charge, like each of them, hey, consult this agency, et cetera. And it doesn't show real well on the projector in the room here, but I think everybody online can see the color. No, it's just so everything in here is marked green, effectively, in the sense that like all of these major comments have been gotten, with the exception of item 3E, the tier 2 path comments. I think we have some informal comments that just came in from the agency. So Ken, would you consider this sort of complete at this point, or is it still marked red because there's something else expected to go to the planning commission here?
I'm gonna guess that the comments just came into staff within the last day or so. So I'm gonna guess that that color just didn't get changed.
Yeah, that's what I was.
Well,
just
there were some concerns in the comments. I mean, they're in our, we can read them.
Right.
I think it ranged from, they question these paths to nowhere. I mean, we've been doing that for decades, as far as I know. You always try to get a floating path easement or so, because we have other connections. We just don't have them all complete yet.
Emily says the tracking table is complete, just haven't been updated.
Right.
Yeah.
But are we going to talk about that? Can we talk about the comments from the state?
Yeah,
now at an
that
appropriate
is on
time?
the agenda, but I'm
Okay.
happy to jump into it now.
Well, sometime I wouldn't mind discussing.
Yeah, let's just talk about it now because it's like just 2 or 3 items up.
I think My read of it was they're really concerned about wetlands and us going near wetlands and stuff. And that raises my question that perhaps we should request the wetlands be delineated in the whole area so that we have an idea. Because otherwise, we're probably gonna have to pay to do it in the future once it's transmitted to the town. And I believe one of the requirements of this was to, if there are any costs incurred by receiving that land, Glaser should pay for it. Or is that misinterpreted? I don't know. I'm just worried that we'll get stuck with the paying for wetland delineation in the future when we go to put that primitive path in.
So Brian and Ken, do you have a wetland delineation on the property as it is, or is it just on the south side?
We have the south side, and then I supplied the wetlands program with the delineation from Northridge as well. And that makes that block, that's a big class 2 wetland. As far as, putting the cost of the further delineation on applicant, they're only good for 5 years. So if the town doesn't move forward with anything quickly, that will all be for
Has
naught.
to be done again anyway.
And the other part is we talked about the fact that this is a tier 2 practice, meaning that we just have to leave the door open for the connection to happen in the future, but planning and a scoping study might be necessary to really determine where this path is gonna go, to just, more or less aimlessly,
And
delineate a
this is
40-acre section.
This is a concern about where the path might go. Is it solely based on that?
Yeah, this was just, so the language in the charge is that they would explore the tier 2 multi-use path connection to Northridge or Martell Park across the Glaser property, as shown on the official map, and explore the feasibility and possibilities, including comment from relevant state agencies. There's no obligation in this bill to build the tier 2 path. What we were asking for really was to make sure that we use this time to sketch out where it might go and whether it's even at all feasible. And it sounds like we've gotten the information about feasibility at least.
I mean, from a practical standpoint, it's uphill from the existing wetland area. I can't imagine that it's, it's where it's currently delineated on the site plan. Seems like, to me, it seems like the best place is gonna have the least amount of impact. Even if there is wetland down in the belly of the property.
Yeah, and if we're getting a floating easement, that sort of addresses the concern about, feasibility vis-a-vis connection into this property.
And one of the things that the wetlands program talks about is looking at, minimal impact from a bigger area, higher view perspective, not just in regards to this parcel. So is there a connection that makes more sense for the south? Is there one that makes more sense that we've talked about maybe up by the Larson parcel? They're gonna look at it more as a holistic approach to making this tier 2 connection rather than just on the Glaser parcel. So without that conversation going further with the wetlands program, again, the delineation might all be for naught.
It looks like Emily's online now too, has her hand raised to make a comment. Emily, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, hey, everybody. So mainly wanted to note that this path connection, we can't require it as part of the bylaw. And what official map says is that the applicant accommodate it. So they've accommodated it by not putting development in the way, and that the town can't, require a wetlands delineation. Now, it would be something that would be, our responsibility in the future if we wanted to pursue this. They've accommodated it by making it possible by not putting any development in the way and creating a lot of possible connection points. But we couldn't require them to do that delineation or construct that path or even scope it any further as part of this approval or conventional development review later on down the road. And nothing in the state's comment memo was a surprise to me. It was about what I was expecting Tina Heath to say.
The other thing that I would add is that if you read what the words in the charge actually says, and having been in those meetings and listening to Chapin, he's talking about a multi-use path. He's not talking about a primitive path.
Mhm.
He's not talking about what we typically, you'd see as a 20-foot easement. And there might be a 5 to 10-foot path in the middle of a 20-foot easement, there's a lot of those in town that we get. He's talking about a primitive path, which is typically something that's paved, and it's that's a whole different kind of facility. And so I bring that up because if that's the question, and now you look at the comments, I think when you line the comments up against the question, it's just saying that at best, that would be a long shot. And, we don't really know about the feasibility beyond the edge of the property line. I mean, from what I understand, the easement that was left behind with Northridge is understood to be largely in a wetland. And then beyond, what may exist on the Martell's property, I don't know, it could be all of a sudden you hit the property line and the property is completely different. But, that's not that's usually not the high probability, likelihood of events. So, but again, I just bring up that was the question that was asked and we got the information. And I think when you line the information up with the question, it's basically, it leads to what I think the committee has already asked us to do before, which is to give a floating easement that would be able to connect to the multi-use path that we're going to construct, that we have reason to believe is absolutely doable. But then that would connect to that in whatever fashion might occur and wherever that might occur at some point in the future. And the town would have ownership of the land. So the town would have the luxury of time to investigate, if there is a connection that's possible. So,
Yeah, I was never under the impression that it was gonna be a multi-use path. through
but
there.
that's what it says.
Oh, okay, well,
Yeah,
that's
looking
totally
at-
different. I thought it was gonna be a primitive path.
Now, having been in all those meetings with Chapin, I heard Chapin, he was very.
From the
Yeah.
Conservation Commission standpoint, we would never request a multi-use path.
Yeah, that is specifically the language in the charge, and that it has been the
Oh, okay.
spirit of
I
the
get it.
discussions with Chapin, so.
Okay. Well, that's totally different.
But it only asked us to explore it and explore the feasibility, which has been done.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, your interpretation is fair, which is not very feasible. But, this development does add significantly more multi-use path feet than I think were initially even thought of in that first plan that came with the transmittal memo with this redesign. So hopefully that addresses some of the concerns. All right, any other comments on the state wetlands agency? Comments, concerns? Okay. So we've been through the deliverables tracking table. That's clear. Everything's green. Everything's been delivered. The growth management questionnaire has been updated. I looked through it and didn't see any substantive change. Does anybody have any questions, concerns? Do we want to review the revised scoring? I'm just going to open it to committee members, sort of speak now or forever hold your peace, or we'll move on.
Speaking as the person who prepared, I can tell you that most of the changes are that where it previously said 106 dwelling units, it now says 109 dwelling units, as we discussed earlier. And there were a couple of other changes, how we would score points for the park and ride lot. That lot up near Mountain View Road was initially part of how we would score those points under sustainable transportation. As you may recall, there was not a parking lot that was proposed next to the neighborhood recreation area. So there now is a parking lot that's proposed next to the neighborhood recreation area, which allows us to garner those points. And there were a few other minor changes.
Yeah, I think we corrected bike storage number 2.
Right,
We were up to 10 bike
Right.
storage spaces.
right. But that was essentially it. I mean, it was like I say, a few change, 106 to 109 in several places. And then those other changes about those sustainable transportation features to line up with how the plan has evolved.
Questions? Okay. All right, next is a late addition to the agenda as well, the view shed rendering. I appreciate, there's been a number of comments from the public requesting this. I appreciate that you guys got it done for the meeting.
Yeah.
We should pull that up. Do you guys want to make any comments as people review it?
Yeah, so this is taken from our proposed curb cut for the northern cluster along Mountain View Road. So it's just at the base of the road, but you can see Camel's Hump, in the view. And it's, as you can see, left of the development. The development, starts higher, and then you can see the cul-de-sac goes and turns away. And I think this perspective shows pretty well how little impact this neighborhood is gonna have on the greater view that's really to the left of the cluster.
So to clarify, you're saying the camera is sitting on the road level,
It's like, it's up in this top corner.
but it's sitting on the pavement. It's not at like 5 feet
Yeah,
off the pavement.
Right, it's not.
Yeah. Okay.
Does anyone from the public or commission here have comments, questions? Please go ahead.
It doesn't have a parking lot,
No, it doesn't have a parking lot.
so if the parking lot's there and there's cars there and like, is that the same level as the street level?
Yeah, that's a good question, and that's a question for the DRB, right? As we've said a couple of times in this commission and as noted on the plan that's gonna get transmitted, that parking lot is a concept, and it's citing like its height. I think there's been commentary that its height would be probably significantly below street level because of the way that the parcel is graded. But I'd ask that one gets sort of left to the DRB as it goes through its process, because we have no idea if it's even gonna be there.
I can just follow up. Is all the houses gonna look like, is that the proposed, how the houses are gonna look or no?
No, they're just general houses. I mean,
It's not a
they're just
uniform
copied
color, it's gonna
down.
be all, it's gonna be.
Yeah, colors, it's just an illustration, but our intention is not to have everything be exactly the same.
Just a comment, yeah, to relate to your question, if you just see the perspective compared to the map, basically you're looking at there the last 5, 6, 7 houses in the string right
Yeah.
here, and therefore that parking lot will be visible from where that person is virtually standing. And then I believe it was made quite clear when they were agreed to make these renderings that this would not be, it's only for the matter of perspective of what kind of alteration of the view shed it would be, what it would be blocking, and not anything to do with what the final design.
Not the
aesthetics. Yeah, not the aesthetics at all.
Great.
One other comment, Brian, how do you get all the trees looking exactly the same? It's amazing.
We don't do
It's
it.
a-
No, we,
But I personally, I'm really happy to see this because it represents what I could see during the site visit. When I was seeing how tall people were in comparison to the midline of the street. I could see already that the height of the houses was not even going to include the southern slopes there by French Hill and so forth. So it's very encouraging in my opinion.
So you from a multi-use path, which will, I don't know, be 10 feet below where this picture was taken, you're still gonna be able to see Camel's Hump. From the road level, it looks like you can still see the steeple, maybe from the multi-use path. Maybe not, but, yeah, I think this helps show what we saw at the site.
I
visit.
appreciate this having been done.
Yeah.
I agree. Very helpful.
Any other comments, questions about this rendering? All right, well, we appreciate you guys adding that. I'm sure the planning commission would like to see that as well. So, all right, and then the last item on the agenda in the
Oh, sorry,
outstanding.
can I just, one more thing to that, Brian, you had pointed to on the map where it was taken from, I think it might be helpful on the map if you can just put a dot that says like, this is where the picture is. Because again, if that point is beyond where the parking lot is, I think it would help. You probably know where the point is, so I'm hoping it's easy to add.
Yeah, it's the intersection of our new road so the parking lot would be below it,
Yeah,
but it's just not shown here due to time. We
sure.
getting the buildings in there were the most important.
Yes, yeah.
All right, and then a comment from the tax assessor says it was included in charge item 6, but there's no link there. So did we ever get a comment?
I think it's in the memo that Emily drafted.
Oh, it's in
It's in there, we
Yeah.
dropped so I had sent an email requesting the information of Bill Hinman, who's the town's appraiser. And he sent me an email back and then said he was gonna get back to me with more information. He didn't. I followed up with another email. It's like, Bill, do you remember, please? And I never heard back from him. So there was some information in his original email, and we just dropped that into the report under the appropriate item.
Have a look at that now.
Yeah, let's pull up the master memo. That's the next thing we're going to review anyway, so here we go. Okay, any questions? Concerns with this?
So I would just summarize it if I could, which is basically saying he sees it as being like a PUD, which is not a term that's in the town's regulations, but it's one that people understand. Similar to other projects in town, and he specifically references Creek's Edge, North Ridge, and even Finney Crossing, spoken correctly. And that the appeal, which would affect the price and tax assessment, would benefit from the open space. And it would affect appeal and marketability and ultimately higher assessments on the 100 home sites. I've used an approximate number. So that's essentially what he said. He would see it as being similar or not dissimilar from almost any other project, similar number of units with an open space component.
Any questions? All right, so, next item on the agenda is to just start to review the deliverables to the planning commission. These were the charge items that we hadn't yet gotten to and reviewed in a meeting. We've gone through all of those at this point. So now it's a question to look at the deliverables to the planning commission, which includes the master memo that was just up on the screen. We'll bring that back up in a moment. And then, of course, the plan and bylaw amendments necessary to effectuate this plan, to put it in the action here. These are some pretty long documents. I think everybody on the commission here is hopefully, committee here has hopefully reviewed them in depth. So why don't we start with the master memo and just, are there any concerns? I would really call everybody's attention here to especially the initial transmittal memo at the beginning. Are there any concerns or questions about this document? Does anyone have any edits, anything here?
Page 4, there's a bottom bullet in yellow that wasn't filled in on my version. There,
Yes,
blank
we'll
acres.
probably take that off Brian's plan, I guess.
Yeah, that's 15.
Between the two neighborhoods. Yeah, I have it as 15. And some of these may vary slightly from my plan, because it's where do you stop and start the southern cluster, the northern cluster, and the middles? Where do you stop and start the pasture and forested area? So there's discrepancies.
I'm sure staff can give this a once over for.
Is it appropriate to say offered to the town or dedicated to the town?
I don't have an answer to that. Yeah, it should. It should be 15 of view shed space to be offered to the town. Yeah, that's a good point.
I think this is just a summary.
Yeah.
I think we talk about this later down. I think there's I'm thinking there's a irrevocable offer.
I would say that we're offering to dedicate it to the town. Ultimately, the town has to accept the land for the dedication to take place,
But this whole process is predicated on it going to the town.
correct.
Yeah, so,
But it's an offer.
well, no, it's a dedication.
Well, but it's an offer. Right,
I understand, but I mean,
okay.
that's why I brought it up. It's just, to me, the way, the way it is written, it just makes it a little loose, whereas if you use the term, I mean, this is semantics, right? I mean, so it's just, if you use the term dedicated as opposed to offered, then it says, yeah, it's going. Even, I mean, they can turn it down, I suppose, but, that's all.
The only thing I would say is, so I think this report, it's not like, it's not at the same level as a DRB motion. It's a report summarizing the activity, which is
I
going,
understand.
which is then gonna go to the planning
It's the
commission.
executive summary.
Do you have any objection to changing offered to dedicated here?
No, I don't think so.
So then let's not die on this hill.
Yeah.
I'll ask Emily as well, like Emily, any concern with using the term dedicated here?
I'm fine with either word there. I mean, it gets offered to the town with an irrevocable offer of dedication, so I think both are fine.
Okay, let's just change the other references to offered
Thank
then, to be consistent. So second bullet. Is there any other?
So the other one comment would be on bullet point number 3, it talks about a 1,200 square foot neighborhood building. If we could put a little tilde line before it, little curvy line,
Plus or minus.
it's approximate.
We can definitely do that. I don't know the function G2.
It's
Yeah,
shift.
there we are.
Actually, get it plus or minus.
Oh, yeah.
Well, we could do plus or minus either.
Or were there any other, trying to recall if there were any other items highlighted in here to be addressed?
So we had in the previous meeting, the table from Emily about the amendments. And I see in this document, there's 2 headings for amendments, one to the town plan, one to the zoning bylaws. I'm just curious why we didn't verbatim include our amendments in the master memo.
I think because they're just attached. So then the town plan and bylaw amendments that are tracked as changes in the next 5 documents linked in the agenda, I think are going to be attached to the memo. Is that correct, Emily?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. So it's in the attachments folder that has all of the many files we've created.
Exactly. There's 5 documents here. I think that go through the town plan and bylaw amendments within the agenda here. So there is, if you really want to understand the full thing, the accompanying documents has like that's the whole transmittal package, everything in every one of those folders that's linked to under accompanying documents. That's the full package of what will go to the planning commission.
Right, and I framed it that way, so when you guys are presenting to the planning commission, and it's how I do staff reports to the DRB, I like to have a really brief bullet point summary, so when I'm reading out loud to a group, I can follow that and don't have to dig through, the line by line track changes in a meeting.
So let's pull the master memo back up. Are there any more questions, clarifications people would like to make on this, this memo? And I'm not going to ask for a motion at this point to adopt the motion that's at the top of this memo until we go through the rest of the documents here. But then we'll come back to this. Okay, I'm not hearing any more questions or concerns. Again, staff, do you guys have anything we should be paying particular attention to in here that's of concern to you? Okay. Take it that there's nothing there. All right, so why don't we pull up the rest of the edited documents? We'll start with town plan, chapter 13. Would you mind just scrolling to the areas that are track changes?
Yeah, so at our last meeting, I totally spaced on sharing this with everybody. The view shed that's called in the town plan, rather than listing it with the views that aren't protected, it'll now be listed with the views that are protected. And it references the other open space assets as well.
And it's just these changes on this one page. Correct? Is there any
That's
other
correct.
issues? Anyone have questions or concerns with the wording? Okay. I assume when the track changes come out, those weird paragraph signs will be plus minuses.
Yes.
Yeah, they show a little weird. PDF.
Yeah,
Okay.
it probably happened when it printing a PDF with track changes does weird things.
Yep.
Is 48 now 38, or is 42 now 38?
Yes, it should be 38.
Downside of using PDFs, we can't correct it live here. So if we do entertain a motion, it'll just be with the changes that we have discussed tonight. All right, other questions on this? If not, let's move on to the bylaw audit table.
So that was the town plan, proposed town plan amendment, right? Just-
Yeah, that's
just-
the town plan.
Yeah,
This is much more detailed, obviously, because this is where the majority of the changes are in the actual bylaws themselves. I know we've gone through this a little bit in these meetings, but does anybody want to go through this item by item and get a review, or do we want to just bring up specific issues?
Why is growth management yellow?
Because we're changing it, I think. So I think these are word for word what's going into the bylaw. So we can look at them here, or we can look at them in context with the rest of the regulations. This really just summarizes the changes in a two-page document.
Yeah, and so the next three documents on the agenda are the actual documents changed with the red lines.
essentially it's built around a table that has a line in the left-hand column for every single chapter in the bylaw, and staff's been using that sort of approach for some time, and I think just highlighted it.
All of them.
Just to catch your eye.
All right, got it.
So this is the chapter 11 for growth management under the broad heading of applicability. So this is being added in.
Right. So let's just go back to the bylaw audit table. Let's look at that for a second. And all right, so that's the growth management edits. Any questions on that? We can, as we go through this audit table, we can bring up the associated documents if you want to dig into the context of this language. Okay, let's just scroll down. Any question on the street trees? Nope. All right. Go. All right, how about the section 39 residential development section?
We want to change offers to.
Well, it says dedication in there, which is
Yeah,
what I
There's a
was,
couple
what I was
offers.
shooting. Yeah, no, I get it.
yeah,
But
but they're
ultimately, that's the legal term.
Yeah.
But it does have the term dedication in there, which is really what I kind of want to push it for.
Good. Oh, yeah, offer of it.
yeah, irrevocable offer of dedication too, which I think is good.
If for some reason the town decides in their infinite wisdom that they don't want to do this, then that should be up to the town, but
Mhm.
what I want is, I don't want any wiggle room on the part of the applicant.
Yeah, makes total
Nothing against
sense.
you guys, but I want this firm going to the town. And if the town decides to do something different, then that's up to them.
No surprises, boss. Yeah, I like that. All right, let's keep going. And then it's just the appendices here. And so this just refers to the attachments that are going to be on here. So does anyone want to go through, the chapter 11, chapter 26, chapter 39 changes in detail? Oh, all right. And then what about any of the other accompanying documents? Yeah, we're not gonna open them up all here, so this is your chance to raise concerns, like, hey, I don't think we addressed this part of the charge, I don't think we have the right documentation here, or hey, I don't think this, I think the applicant needs to go back and change this, that, or the other thing. All right, I'm not hearing a lot of questions and concerns. I would certainly entertain a motion to approve this plan and any discussion you guys would like to have before someone makes this motion. But definitely entertain a motion if somebody wants to. The motion is laid out. Yeah, here, you think you brought it up. Maybe you can just zoom out a little bit to catch the top couple sentences there. This is, proposed motion drafted by staff here. And if we make this motion, then we'll vote on this, and this will go sort of as we're seeing it today to the planning commission, and then we can talk a little bit about the presentation of that. So I just asked the members of the committee that are here, questions, concerns, you're gonna stand in front of the screen and tie yourself to it with chains unless we vote on this. Yeah, see a comment?
How many committee members are there total?
We do have a quorum here, so we have 5 of the 7 total committee. 6, sorry, thank you. Yeah, we ended up with an even number. So we have 5 of the 6, so we do have a quorum here.
So I am fine with it.
I'm seeing a lot of nodding heads. All right, who would like to put their name on this motion? I don't feel it's appropriate for me as chair to do so, so. Somebody want to make the initial motion?
So I would prefer not to, because I'm going to be on the DRB, it's just gonna come before. Happy to vote on it, but I prefer not to read the motion.
Understood.
Same, I'm on the DRB.
Okay. Gary, you guys want
I'm on the conservation now.
to? Oh, here it goes.
So where's the actual motion I need to make?
Down here, do you want me to zoom in a bit?
Yeah, I just want to see.
Projector isn't best.
Yeah, it's also, if you want to read it, it's right, so it's here so it's the transmittal motion in your, so if you scroll down a little bit, it starts with whereas.
So I have to say this entire thing?
I don't know that you have to recite it. I think you could say.
No, you can just read the last bit, therefore.
Yeah, therefore, I, Gary Holly, move that the Glaser Specific Plan Advisory Committee move to transmit the specific plan application, the proposed town plan and bylaw amendments and all accompanying documents to the planning commission with a recommendation for, and that we have to vote.
Well, you should say approval or denial here.
Well, then, don't we have to vote or is it
Yes, we
just?
will.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
make a motion.
Okay,
Make the
motion
first,
for
right?
approval.
All right, motion for approval. Just in the interest of absolute clarity on the call here, I'm just gonna poll each one of you individually for your vote, so.
Is there a second?
Oh, sorry, yeah, did you say anybody want a second? All right, thank you. All right, Kyle, go ahead. How do you vote?
Yes.
Okay,
Yay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Mary? Yeah, so that's unanimous, 5 votes, 0, no abstentions, and nobody voting against.
One absent.
Yeah, 1 absent. So that's that, it's official. This is going back to the planning commission. As it's been amended on the screen here and the one amendment we put it to the 38 acres.
Can I say something?
Please.
I really want to thank the committee, all the members of the committee. Not the gratuitous thanks for approving this, but really thank you for the time. I recognize that you all spent an awful lot of your personal time as a volunteer to serve on this committee. I do think that what we have come out with at the end of the project has been far improved to what went in. And that's due to your input, your questions, your recommendations. We took, as you know, we took pretty much everything to heart, and it's a much better plan what we proposed. So I do thank you all. I think it's a much better plan for the entire community. So thank you again.
You're welcome.
All right, thank you for those comments as well. So we should just talk. It sounds like we'll be presenting this at June 6th. So we should decide who's going to present this plan. I assume, the applicant will do the majority of the talking here. I'm on the planning commission as a voting member, so I don't know if Scott, you've done a lot more of these types of meetings. What do you think about who on our committee here should represent us for the primary presentation here? Or should we just leave it up to the applicant and let the planning commission ask us questions?
Well, I think that it would be probably wise or appropriate, and maybe not wise, to have a committee person or people there to just give us brief overview of what was accomplished. Nothing more than that. I think that, I think Ken is obviously probably the right person to do the in-depth review in front of the commission. So.
Could we ask Emily her thoughts? Well, I'll tell you, my thought is that, I think about how, an item like this would go in front of the planning commission or would go in front of the DRB. And so the standard procedure is the staff goes first. The staff kind of lays things out, then the applicant chimes in if necessary. And then, then potentially, Emily, does that make sense to you?
Yes, the bylaw does say that the applicant and committee will do the presentation to the planning commission. So I'll be there and can help fill any gaps. But I think if it makes sense that Ken and then someone from the committee takes the lead, I think it's probably fine if it's Alex because he's on the planning commission, or if somebody else wants to take the lead. Mainly just to talk through what the committee's process was, what the different iterations brought to the final site plan, the final conclusion. So I think anyone would be qualified to do it.
Okay. I'm happy to do it with the sole exception that it's on June 6th, and I unfortunately will probably be out of town on June 6th. I have a conference on June 7th. I haven't booked my travel yet, but I don't think I'm going to get to an 8 a.m. conference in Baltimore, on a 3 a.m. flight. No. Yeah, I'm out of town too. So otherwise, I would just volunteer to do it. So let me work out that planning. Will someone sit as backup to me? And
I mean, I would, but I also will be out of town.
wow, we're gonna have a lot of members out of town. That sort of doesn't make for great ability for the planning commission to ask questions of the committee members. That's difficult. I mean, I'll just join at least remotely. I can commit to that. So I have no problem joining remotely. It's just a work conference. So I'll do it. I'll join remotely, and anybody who can make it, I please encourage you to make it.
Yeah, I should be able to make it.
Okay. All right, it sounds like we have logistics worked out. What else, if anything, do we need to discuss tonight? Anybody like to make any final comments?
Well, I guess I'd like to say that, it's been, I've enjoyed being part of this committee. It's been a really interesting learning process. I will freely admit that when I got on the committee, I was skeptical of the process. I've never seen it before, and having spent a lot of time on the DRB and being party to growth management, I think given the housing crisis, this is the dedication of the open land by the applicant, this is a really good outcome. It's a really good outcome.
Yeah, thank you. I have sat on one of these previously to this, and I would say the tone and tenor in the room from the applicant has been vastly different than my previous specific plan experience. So I imagine you were probably expecting something much like what I actually
It was
experienced.
better or worse?
We're not voting on that.
I do think that I hope future hope future specific plan applicants are paying attention, because there have been some some that I've heard of that are in the process of being talked about that are not nearly as generous as this one. And if this is the standard, it would be worth future applicants paying attention to.
Yeah, I'll second that, Scott. I mean, I'm really impressed. I mean, you guys have done everything that we asked for, I think, as far as I know, within reason, and it helps the process a lot when you don't have any concerns.
Well,
There's many concerns.
Right,
They were good asks.
and it's a give
They
and
were
take,
good.
right? So.
Anyone else from the public want to make a comment? Otherwise, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion.
All right, Harry motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you all.
We'll all see you on June 6th.
Bye, everybody.
Hi,
Hi,
Emily.
Emily.
Yeah.